So being that you're in the recording industry and that you studied it, I wanted to talk about like your opinion on USB mics versus XLR versus, all the different stuff that comes with it. So I'm using the USB version of the Audio Technica AT2020. And I'm using the AT2020 headphones, and it's plugged straight into my computer.
Solid. I dig that stuff. I'm always a fan of Audio Technica. Their mics are some of my favorites. They have some really good stuff, and I also love their headphones. But so the USB question is interesting, right? Because what it really comes down to is the converter.
Mm-hmm.
So studios, when you have like a big fucking recording studio, right? They spend a lot of money on their, all of their gear, obviously, but one of the things they spend a lot of money on is a standalone converter. It's just going to be one rack unit, and it's going to be only an A to D, D to A converter. It's all it's going to do for however many channels they need, 8, 16, 32, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the benefit of anything like that, if you get anything that's an all-in-one system, it's always, if you get like a stereo that does, CD player, does radio, does DVD, does all that shit, it's never going to be quite as good as if you get the component parts by themselves and you get the best one possible of each of those.
Right.
Right. If you just get a stereo that's a head unit, all it's focusing on is doing the amplifying and processing the signal, then everything else is coming from an external unit. It's going to be in better quality ultimately by the end.
Right.
The shit is now that like converters have gotten really, really good just in general. So things like the USB mic, like what I hear coming from you right now is crystal fucking clear. It sounds great, and if you're using that for...
it's funny that you say that because we use Zoom with work, and obviously everybody else is using the laptop webcam, laptop microphone. And every time I talk, one of the guys goes, "Coming to you from COVID Radio, Frank Falco."
When this first started, me and a bunch of my friends were sending pictures around of like our girlfriend setups.
Yeah.
And just because we're all dorky, like every one of our girlfriends has a setup with 2 monitors at home.
Right.
Because
so same here.
Yeah, right. And Allie pointed that out, and she was just like, it's a good thing we all date dorks because we have better setup. Like nobody else in her office is working with 2 monitors at home.
Right.
It's so funny. But I just have fucking screens everywhere.
Yeah, we have currently in the room that I'm sitting in right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens total.
That's solid.
One of them is not being used because I just don't need 3 screens.
It's totally fair.
And I have like one like super high end screen, and then one that's just like, whatever. I can see it. It functions. It does its job. For if I'm playing a game, I have like Discord or whatever other apps that I'm using to like monitor what's going on with the computer. And then I have the high refresh rate Acer Predator that has a 240 hertz refresh rate that's like super silky smooth.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And like, I don't know how you don't work on 2 monitors. And I usually have like 3 monitors in here. I gave one to Allie. And actually, I just got a thing where I can use my iPad as an extra screen, which will be cool when I get my new computer, because this laptop cannot handle that shit. I may or may not have had this crash on me during a session last week. But
yeah, that's cool. A serious bummer.
I mean, luckily it was cool. Like, we were able to work it out pretty quick, but it just kind of like restarted on me, and I was like, son of a bitch, because it just doesn't have the power to run that extra screen USB to an iPad.
Right.
But my new computer.
Now, the new computer is going to be a Mac Mini, you said, right?
Yeah, it's a Mac Mini because Apple sucks, and their Mac Pro now, the thing that replaced the trash can, is like this little future box. It's silver. It's like this big, and it starts at $6,000.
Well, no, you're thinking of the cheese grater.
Yeah.
So
that's all they have. I'm not looking for something.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
No. So they went from the trash can
to that.
to a full blown desktop, and it's supposed to be modular. But you're right; it starts at $6,000, and then by the time you're done, it's like 40.
Oh yeah, I mean the amount of shit that you can do that. So that's why I went for the Mac Mini.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now,
that's why I went for the Mac Mini because
why
so
Mac over Windows? Like, what for what
so
you're doing? What's
running
the
running audio software in general, I find, and just pretty much doing everything in life on a computer is just smoother on a Mac system. And I have now tested this in a lot of ways because I work all the time on Windows at work. So
Mhm.
before I was just saying that and kind of talking out of my ass and being a jackass. But now I actually run Windows systems all the time. And I have an Android phone, as you well know,
That's
which
right.
honestly, man,
We're gonna have to come back to that.
all right, well, here's the short answer. I'd give this motherfucker back tomorrow if I could.
Really?
I mean, honestly, like sort of, it's really 50-50. But
Okay.
and the reason to move back in the other direction is because of just the fluidity of Mac operating systems. They're so
Okay.
fucking smooth. They're so easy. I have had this phone for about 6 months. I've had it glitch on me
What
more
phone is that?
times. The Galaxy S10.
Okay.
I've had it glitch on me more times in 6 months than any iPhone has ever. And
Interesting.
little glitches where like I'll go to the app screen, open up a menu, and it pops open and then shoots back closed, and I have to do it again. It's not super significant stuff, but I've never seen an iPhone do that.
So you know what's interesting about that? Um, I've had Pixels for the only Pixel generation that I didn't get was the second. So I had the original Pixel XL, skipped the Pixel 2, and then I had a 3, and I currently have a 4 XL.
Okay.
And I don't have glitches like that.
And it's interesting because the more that I thought about it, the more I realized I probably should have gotten a Pixel. I know that I
Yeah.
should have gotten a Pixel. The problem was the size because like even this fucker is like a little too big for me.
Well, you
And
can get the regular size. There's the Pixel and the Pixel XL.
no, I know that, and even and this is regular size, and even this, like I don't need this much fucking phone, man. I don't care. I ended up making it small screen like half the time because I
Right.
just like I can't
Yeah.
use the shit. So, but either way, I like Mac operating systems. I like running it for audio software, and also one of the softwares that I use, which is Logic Pro, is only available on Mac.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And Logic is great software, and I have it. I bought it years ago, and I've always kept up with it, and so I dig having it. And I'm trying to get into some sound design, potentially coming up. So like Logic is good for that shit too.
What's what's sound design?
Like
Like
doing sound effects with
oh,
video and shit,
yeah.
making crazy sounds, and even making normal sounds, but just making them sound good. So that's why I went for the Mac, and the Mac Mini is because I got screens and I got keyboards and I got my trackball and I got everything else that I need. And I just wanted a computer that could handle whatever I can throw at it.
Right.
So like the one I got, it's the 3.2 gigahertz with the i7 and 6 cores.
Okay.
It's got
That's
32,
solid.
it's got 32 gigs of RAM. It's got a terabyte internal solid state. And like and I could have I went for the terabyte. I was gonna go for a 512, but like I went for the terabyte because like
It's
fucking
worth it.
it is.
It really is. So like in the computer that's behind me right now, I'm running 2 drives. I'm running a Samsung 250 gigabyte Evo solid state drive for the boot drive,
Yeah.
and a 2 terabyte Seagate hybrid drive. So what's cool about that is that once you get above, you know, a terabyte or so, the solid state drives get pretty expensive, or at least they did when I built the computer.
Yeah.
And the Seagate drive, what it does is it's a high RPM drive to begin with, so the read and write speeds are better. But what it does is once you boot something up from that drive, it caches it on a solid state drive for the duration of your use with it. So, for example, once I load up a game, the initial load might take a beat longer than it should,
Right.
but loading screens from that point forward, once it's cached, it's the same thing as a solid state drive, and then it will recycle that back to the hard disk when you're not using it again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a third the price of a comparable solid state drive at the time.
Yeah. I mean, and like solid state was really important to me. I knew I wanted solid state. All of my work drive, I keep everything, all my session files and like all the audio files and shit. You always keep on an external. And I have one of my favorite things I ever bought. This is my 500 gigabyte solid state external hard drive.
Nice.
It is the easiest thing to carry around. It is this fucking big.
It looks like a little, like it almost looks like a credit card.
It's actually about the size of a credit card.
Turn it to its side. I just want to see how thick it is. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's basically like very easily into your pocket type of situation.
So, and I've for a long time been wanting to run solid state to solid state because it's just so much faster for shit like that.
Now, is that a Thunderbolt? Like what?
That's a USB 3.
Okay.
The Mac though, Apple finally fucking came around for the new Mac Minis, and they all have Thunderbolt 3, which is just USB-C connections.
Yeah.
So they did adapt.
I'm waiting for the day that they put that on their phone, because they've gone all in on the port,
the Lightning,
on every other device that they sell.
I know.
And the only, I mean, the obvious reason is that every other phone is on the Type-C port. And they're trying to keep the Lightning connector proprietary.
Because they are always trying to keep everything proprietary.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, so USB versus XLR, and how you would compare them, what would you use each for, like?
Oh wait, the other thing that I have to bitch about real quick before we finish that.
Sure.
So I put 32 gigs of RAM in the computer and could have gone to 64. But Apple charges so fucking much for RAM. The 64 gigabyte upgrade was like $600. And if you were to buy that RAM separate, I could get it for like probably 90. A third of that.
Yeah, you could probably get 64 gigs for probably about $200.
Yeah.
Because I have 32, and it cost me about $100 when I bought it.
Yeah, and it's absolutely absurd. That makes me feel better to know that you have 32 also.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. It's more than enough,
dude. And that was I was talking to my friend Danny about it, and he was like, I was like, 64 can't really be worth it. And he was like, dude, you get 64 when you're doing like Pixar animation.
Well, I was literally just about to say, you get 64 128 high RAM rigs when you're rendering, when you're doing like machine learning, when you're doing high resolution rendering and video editing, and you need that extra headroom. I've edited videos on my computer at the same time that I'm gaming, and it doesn't even, like, I might use 16.
Well, yeah, and because also what I've realized, Allie's cousin used to work for like IBM or Intel or something like that. He's extremely knowledgeable. And I had a good conversation with him, and he was one of the things that I had realized before that, and then like talking with him also helped me realize it, because he also does photography, and he does a lot of photo editing and like heavy shit like that.
Yeah.
So it's, especially with audio stuff, it's so much about CPU, and it's not all about memory, because DAWs take CPU load like crazy, plugins and shit. And
now,
so like having the extra cores and having the extra processing, like the i7s can have.
So having the multi-threaded processes helps.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. And I didn't actually know as much about the debate over like speed versus cores, because it's interesting. If you look on that Mac Pro, one of their high-end options is like only a 2.8 gigahertz processor, but there's like 16 cores or 24 cores, something crazy like that. So that debate of like speed over cores or cores over speed
Yeah.
was kind of interesting, but I think I struck the good balance.
Yeah. And
The options.
a big thing with that is it's very dependent on what you're doing and whether or not the program is optimized for taking advantage of either the extra headroom in speed or the extra headroom in multi-threaded applications. So
Right.
like, for example, when Ryzen came out with the original Threadripper, they had a gaming mode that turned off half of its cores because games weren't typically optimized to take advantage of 32 threads, and most games don't need 32 threads.
Sure.
And so it actually hindered the performance. But if you were doing something like video editing or rendering, the extra headroom for cores and threads would do it much, much faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the truth is, like, I want a balance, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm excited, man. This thing's going to kill it. The only problem with it is that it doesn't have, the Pro has GPU in it, and this really
Mhm.
doesn't, but like, I don't need the shit. It has HDMI in it. I'm only gonna run like that 3 monitor setup, and
Mhm.
I don't need it for video stuff, so I don't care. I know
Yeah.
GPU can take extra load off of your CPU processing, but like, I'm never gonna max this thing out unless I'm doing
Yeah.
something insane. So like,
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Yeah. No, that's solid. That's a solid pick for what you're for audio processing. And like you said, there's a lot of, I've noticed that there are a lot of applications. As much as I prefer Windows, there's a lot of stuff for audio that just doesn't work with Windows.
And
And when
then,
it does, like, it doesn't play well. And when you can kind of get it to play well, it's like, this would have been so much easier on another platform.
dude, they don't, and it's crazy because I've noticed in working more with Windows that Windows has the same thing. People don't really, call it out for that because it's mostly to do with like outside developers and not essential software.
Hmm.
But the truth is, like, the stuff that I was doing when I was a project manager at the studio, there are some of those applications that just do not exist on a Mac. I know because I've looked for them. There's just some stuff that's irreplaceable,
Yeah.
and there's just like not a substitute. It happens in both directions. And I think that it's not just one, it's both. But like,
Yeah.
Mac systems, yeah, I get that. Windows isn't bad. They're both
It depends on what
evil
you're
in their
using
own
it for.
ways.
Yeah.
It
It
does.
depends on what you're using it for. Like, I could never game on a Mac.
No, and you wouldn't want to,
No.
especially because the amount you'd have to spend to get the rig that you'd need for gaming would be preposterous.
Well, that too. Um, yeah, that's the other side of it. But let's say it was affordable. It's just Windows is much better set up for gaming, for streaming, for
It is.
doing all the things that I prefer to do.
So true. Yeah, and I mean, I've come around to the fact in doing so much work with it when I'm at the studio that uh, Windows has its uses, and I
Yeah,
understand why some people pick it. It doesn't make me like it anymore because Windows is a pain in the ass.
it can be.
But it is useful in its own way, and for certain things, it's fine. Like, at this point, it's almost 6 of one. Like, it's not.
Yeah,
It's so much more on personal preference than like most people are not going to get either a Windows or a Mac computer, get it home, get it open, start using it, and go, well, this can't do what I need it to do because
right. Yeah,
fuck you,
a
most people
big
need to do. Like, it's just not going to happen.
right. A big part of it now is the design choice. Like, if you're
Right.
doing a lot of typing, um, my Lenovo has mechanical key switches, which is really nice. It's
Interesting.
very tactile. They're like clicky. You can kind of feel like the keyboard itself is super nice, super easy to type on.
I hate clicky keyboards. This keyboard that I have is my favorite thing. I love
Okay,
it.
so that is kind of what my Lenovo has as far
And
as what it feels like. When I
all
say
the time.
clicky, I mean like you can feel the keys actuating, right?
This would
As
be
opposed to the keyboard that I have, like you can probably hear that.
yeah,
I have a super duper clicky keyboard,
yeah,
but I didn't buy it for that. I bought it for the way it feels.
it's fair.
Um, I've used some of the newer Macs with like the butterfly switches on the switches on the
Yeah,
keys, and the travel is just so shallow, and like you've got to like slam the key down to feel like you're pressing it.
yeah.
It's
I get that. I've
if
had
I
that issue.
was if that was what I was buying it for, I would be super disappointed.
Totally fair.
But if I was using it for something else that didn't involve a ton of typing, or you know, I could see where you could be very content using, you know, a Mac and have no problem with it, because like you said, it's never gonna, unless you're buying it for a specific purpose, it's gonna do everything you need.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're one of those people that buys a computer for a specific purpose, then you're not gonna probably be dumb enough to buy the wrong computer because
Right.
you'll make sure it can do what you want.
Yeah. It just is what it is.
But back to your original point,
Yeah.
because what you had mentioned was the mic running into the computer and being USB.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's how we started talking about converters and got all
Yeah. And went
bent off.
off on a tangent.
Yeah, we're terrible at that. That never happens when we talk ever.
Yeah, no.
Um,
That's a big part of why I wanted to do this with you, because we could be here for the next 4 hours and have no shortage of information to talk about.
yeah, nice.
In an hour, we'll probably be talking about you know, the expansion of the universe.
Totally possible.
Oh yeah.
So the converter is the most important thing, right?
Mm.
And converters have gotten really good in, you know, standalone stuff at home. I have my interface here on my desk that does really good conversion and sounds amazing. And once I'm running this through the new computer, it's all going to be a beast. I'm so excited. But it's, you know, mics like that for doing, especially because podcasting has blown up and, you know,
Mhm.
being in voiceover and audiobooks, like I see a bunch of people use stuff like that. This is actually what we're sending narrators. We have the Rode version, the Rode NTR, or
Okay.
not NTR, which is the, hang on. The Rode NT.
Okay.
There's no, and NT USB. That's fair. We're using that one, and it sounds great. You know, they really work. They handle voice well, and the truth is, like, we're always gonna, you know, there's for something like, at least the way that we do this, there's always post production. You know, there's always mastering involved. There's always going to be, you know, somebody giving it at least a good,
Once
well-checked
over.
listen. Yeah, I mean, realistically, like 3 or 4 times over in our case, because we do an editor and a QCer, and then the project manager masters it, who's an engineer, and
Mhm.
then goes to other people. Fucking lot of listens. But it's, you know, it's just about keeping the voice sounding good, keeping things sounding, you know, natural enough, and the ones that are higher end, like obviously, you know, there are shitty versions of everything out there, but like
Sure.
something like that Audio Technica or something like the Rode, like those mics are good, and the USB version is very, very functional.
So
Works
that
really well.
it's like when I bought this, I was at PAX, and Audio Technica had one of the nicer booths there. I was looking for, you know, a new headset, because I was using a SteelSeries Arctis headset,
Okay.
which was solid. The mic was really good, but it's I couldn't get enough volume out of the headset itself, right?
Okay.
So I was a little bit disappointed in it in that way, because a lot of the games that I play are first-person shooters, and like I play a lot of Apex Legends, and being able to hear things around you is super duper important. So if you can't turn the volume up enough, you could find yourself in a situation where you're getting killed, um, which sucks. So I was looking for a new like headset microphone combo, and I was looking at a couple all-in-ones where it's the Astro headsets, which were solid. But this caught my attention because it was a standalone mic, came with the boom arm. I mean, the boom arm is nothing special, and it came with the headphones. And I was torn between spending, $10 extra for the XLR versus the USB, even though I know that it's not just $10. I would have had to buy some sort of interface, and, I know there's extra cost, but in my mind, I'm saying, what am I getting, for what I'm using it for? Is there going to be an appreciable difference in quality?
So the interesting thing is that mic, like that's a condenser mic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that means that mic needs to be powered. Condenser mics need power to run. We call it phantom power when it comes from a preamp, which is what you would be using with any other microphone. An
Right.
interface is just many things in one box, including a preamp. It also has like, instrument DI and headphone amp and output line outs. But powering that mic, doing the conversion, and transmitting its signal like that, um, that's the all-in-one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between a USB mic where it's just going to send like an electrical signal to an interface that's going to convert it and be its preamp, or to that mic that's going to do all of that in one.
Right.
You know? And it's like, again, it's that philosophy of when you pick the best of the individual component parts and make that
Mm-hmm.
your chain, then that's always going to give you the best result, because each thing is only focusing on doing one thing, right?
Right.
um, and the real difference, like when I was teaching, this is what I used to tell my students when we're talking about analog versus digital, right? The real difference, there's one, people love to talk about the difference between analog and digital and like what the conversion and all that shit, and there is one thing that is like an absolute difference that nobody can argue. One is continuous and one is not,
Okay.
right? One is continuous and one is not. So an analog signal is electrical, and it's coming into the mic. The mic is a transducer, it converts it into electrical energy. If you're keeping it all analog, it then travels down the cable as electrical energy. It then writes through a tape machine to magnetic tape as electrical energy. It then goes back out of speakers and gets back into acoustic energy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's never a break. The signal
Right.
is always fluid. When you use digital audio, it's a sample and hold process. So just like with video, where you have a frame rate, right, 30 frames per second when you're shooting video, or when you're, whatever you're doing, um, audio is the same thing. When you have digital audio, you have a sample rate, right?
Right.
You have to look at that for audio. You use 44.1. That's 44,100 pictures of an audio wave per second.
Okay.
So no matter how many pictures you take, because theoretically a higher sample rate will get you more pictures and get you more precision and quality. It's true to an extent.
Until you hit like
Realistically,
law of diminishing returns.
realistically, there are other reasons. I mean, human hearing only goes so high. Humans can only hear up to 20,000 hertz, and that's at the absolute best. Most people can't hear with good hearing over like 18, and as you get older, then I know people that are older that can't hear over like 12,000 or 10,000 hertz, and maybe even less.
Mm-hmm.
um, and the
How,
sample rate.
I just want
So
to stick with that for 1 second. What would be like what kind of a difference would that person that, like, let's say you can't hear over 12,000 hertz?
it's gonna start to get muffled. It's gonna start as you start to cut it off, or like as you start to decide. Listen to what changes in the voice when I get to doing this. because high frequencies aren't going to be able to make it around my hand. So now my voice sounds like this versus when I take it away and it sounds like that. Or wait, does it? No, it doesn't. Hang on.
I was going to say it didn't change. I don't know if it's the fact that we're using the internet or the mic
Oh,
itself.
hang on.
Oh,
How does this sound?
that
It's
sounds
different.
very different.
Yeah, that's crazy. I thought this mic. I realized when I'm recording and I set my zoom, I need to set it to the internal mic because there's a weird like latency thing with the plugin and everything goes all strange.
Oh, so have you been using the internal mic for?
The internal mic this whole time, but this is the one that's now on. It sounds probably a little bit better.
It does, yeah,
So all right, so wait, listen to that now. So when I do that and I cover this, now it sounds different.
yeah.
Now the high frequencies can't get around this. You're only hearing more of the lows. So you're cutting out all that really, really high stuff. And as you bring it away, it comes back and you get, you know, so um but the law that was created back in the day, uh,
Hmm.
the Nyquist theorem.
Okay,
The Nyquist theorem. The Nyquist theorem, when they were coming up with digital audio, said that your sampling frequency has to be 2 times the highest frequency that you're looking to capture.
okay,
It can hear up to 20,000 hertz. We set the sample rate at 40,000 hertz. We go up to 44 because filters are sloped and we want to make sure to, you know,
capture everything.
capture everything. But that's about the idea.
Okay,
So theoretically, if you go to a higher sample rate, you can pick up higher frequencies, right? If you record at 88,200 hertz, which is your next step up as far as raw, as just audio goes, um, you can capture up to 40,000 hertz.
hmm,
But why? We can't hear up to 40,000 hertz. So what does that do? And furthermore, can your mics and your gear actually pick up anything up there? Because some mics actually can capture beyond 20,000 hertz. And so is your gear capable of handling and processing that and actually making it do something? Um,
so would there be a use for that?
so the truth is the biggest, as far as a lot of engineers are concerned, the biggest use for increasing sample rate actually has to do with the way that certain software runs when you
Okay,
process at a higher sample rate as opposed to like the audio itself when you record at a higher sample rate. But I will be honest, I do a lot of my recording at 88 too. Um, you go up by that much, a lot of I think personally, this is just my opinion, but it's right. Um,
it's my opinion, but if you're doing it otherwise, you're wrong, and
kind of.
you should quit.
So here's the thing. Those like really high def sample rates, right?
Yeah.
Like 192 or 196K. Um, those are so high. And also with a lot of gear, like because you have so many samples, that's actually leaving more room for error. And so like
Okay.
it's kind of it's like overkill. It's going to tax more systems and most converters that are going up to that, like that's not going to be their strong suit for processing.
Hmm.
And certain converters people prefer because honestly, some converters sound better at different sample rates. If you
I guess
compare
that makes sense.
two different converters, both recording at 44.1 and both recording at 88.2, you will get different sounds.
Hmm.
Ideally, you will not. Ideally, you will get the same
The
sound.
same sound.
Converter is not imparting anything to it. Although some converters, honestly, if you build the analog side right, because the digital only has so much to do. But if you build the analog side right, you can actually drive them and push them and like get a little bit of tone out of them. They build them that way,
Right.
which is cool. But you know, it higher sample rates is always a huge debate among engineers, but it's not always something that you need. Um, I do wish people would realize more the difference between 44.1 and 48K because 44.1, those are both like a base sample
Right.
rate. 44 one is like the lowest you want to go when you're doing audio because that's going to capture everything, right?
Hmm.
The 8K is that same thing, except it's used for sound to picture when you're
Okay.
doing when you're doing anything like that. They figured out at some point that audio sampled at 48K because obviously they experimented with all different sample rates. Audio sampled at 48K syncs up with videos better.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't actually know. I never.
I mean,
I learned about it.
I should have phrased that differently. What's the reason for that?
I
Or do you know the reason for that?
I don't know the reason for that. I have always guessed, and this is purely a guess, that there is something to do with the 24 frames per second uh, base frame rate or normal frame rate or something.
Hmm.
I, it's just a really common thing. I don't know if it's like the one that everyone uses. I know there's 24, there's 30, and then there's like much higher for.
Right. Well, usually you see with like movies, TV shows, they're shot at the like cinematic looking 24 frames per second.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at 30 is when you start to see things that look like they've been shot on a GoPro and they almost look 30 is where you start to see the soap opera effect.
Oh,
You know how
interesting.
when you watch soap opera, um, everything is super fluid, and it's because they're shot at higher frame rate cameras. And
Huh.
um, most
I almost feel
t-
stupid for not putting that together until now.
what the soap opera effect and
That
the higher frame rate,
that makes so much sense. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
so much sense.
And
I learned about that.
um,
Yeah.
there's a couple things that like there's a couple reasons that they shoot at the 24 as opposed to higher frame rates is because um, number one, most TVs can only go up to 60 frames per second. That's like the standard. So being able to, like, for example, a 1080i TV will refresh all the frames, excuse me, all the pixels, um, 60 times, and it'll still match with 30 or 24 much more easily, and you won't get screen tearing, which is more a problem that you have in video games. When the frames don't match the refresh rate of the screen, you'll get I don't know if you've ever seen it where it's pretty prominent in a video game where the GPU renders a frame faster than the screen is refreshing, and mid refresh you'll see a line go across the screen, and it's one image on top, one image on the bottom for like a split second.
Yeah,
That's because uh, it's not sunk with the refresh rate of the screen.
that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen that before. I've been since we've been stuck inside, I've been playing games a little bit again.
Yeah,
I played through. I only have like 2 games. I played through Gears of War 4 again, which is actually a pretty fun game.
yeah.
I liked it. The end part, you get those big fucking robots. And
Would you
grab the
believe I've never played a Gears?
man. I've only played them like sporadically, and then when I took this Xbox from my buddy, he gave
Hmm.
me that game because he was done with it. He was like, all right, so you have something to do.
Yeah.
Uh, so I have that, and I had Destiny 1, and I actually just downloaded Destiny 2. So I started playing Destiny 2 a little bit.
So the one thing I'll say about Destiny 2 is don't get the expansions. There are
No,
a lot of people that are very angry about what happens in the expansions.
man. So my friend Curtin, who I keep telling you need to meet, um, he loves this game,
Hmm.
and he's played a whole bunch, and he's told me a few things about it because he like keeps up with all that shit.
Hmm.
So he's told me that, and like I'm not super serious, so I I'm going through all just like the free stuff first. I
Yeah.
actually don't have an Xbox Live account anymore, um, but I'm going through all the free stuff first, and then like if I really like it enough, and maybe if we're still in quarantine, because otherwise I don't really have the time,
Hmm.
then I'll break and do that, and I'll actually
Yeah.
like, buy some of the extra content in Destiny because I played the first one and I did really like the first one. First one
They're,
was cool.
they're not bad games. It's just it feels like it wants to be sort of Halo
You know, maybe that's why I
to
like it
me.
because I always had fun playing Halo, and it does kind of remind me of Halo a
Hmm.
little bit, I guess. And I dig that because like I haven't kept up with the Halos, and like I don't really buy games anymore. My Xbox is mostly just like another media thing that I can Netflix on and shit.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do like the occasional game, and Destiny has proven a fun one because like I like that it has that open world aspect because you can just like run around and shoot some shit if that's what you feel like doing because
Hmm.
you can do like the bounties and you can do just like getting the extra XP and shit like that. Especially when you're like first starting to build a character.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's cool. I like it, and can't get like back into games quite as much. I have been playing N64 a lot too, which I dig.
So we have an N64 as well. Um,
I'm
and
missing
you
all
want to,
the games
what's
though.
that?
I'm missing all the best games though. I lost them when I was in college, and I've never replaced them, and now I'm very sad about that.
Yeah. So I don't even know where my original N64 ended up. So I bought another one a couple years ago, and
Nice.
the only two games that we have for it is Super Mario 64 because
Of
you
course.
gotta,
Yeah.
and like the arcade game, like classics like Dig Dug and Space Invaders and
That's fun.
Galaga,
Yeah. I
Pac Man.
that,
And I gotta say, the thing that bugs me out about it is when you plug an N64 into a flat panel TV, you expect it to look like great, right? And it looks awful.
it kind of does.
It looks so awful because it's not converting, like it wasn't meant to be on a TV like that. It was meant to be on the old school CRT, non HDMI, non fixed resolution screens.
That's true. But you know what? You know what I do love about it?
What's that?
You turn it on, and then like 15 seconds later, you're playing the game. There's no loading
Yeah.
screen. Everything
Yeah.
cartridge systems, man. Oh, so
I do,
good.
but
I just turn it on and start playing. I start up playing Destiny. It takes me like 10 minutes to start playing Destiny.
yeah.
It's a
And
fun
and
game, but
now
it kills me.
in that same vein, like I've been playing a lot of battle royale. I've been playing Apex Legends like almost religiously. It's
Okay.
basically become an addiction for me right now, right?
Yeah.
And the drawback is that the game might load up like super quick, right? But in lieu of loading screens, there are queue times where you have to wait for a match. And the
Same.
tricky part is like, let's say you're up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and people aren't online. The queue time might be 15 minutes
Yeah.
before it can put together a match that the matchmaker in game thinks is like semi fair,
Man,
and it's never fair.
I could put on my N64 and cruise half the USA in that time.
Yeah.
Yo, you know what really bothers me about that game? There's like one level that ends up taking you from like Arizona through up the Midwest, and then you end up in like two levels. You're from like the Grand Canyon to like Illinois,
Yeah.
and you spend a whole shitload of time on the West Coast, and then there's like the last couple. It's mostly
And you drive that last couple, it's like that.
it's a very biased game.
Uh,
It goes through the rest of the country really fast. It's
it's like
mostly
there's nothing out there. There's nothing on the East Coast. There's nothing but coronavirus and death.
true. It's true. You drive right through it, so it
Yeah.
looks all the same.
Yep.
I will say that game's fucking fun. I enjoyed
Yeah.
Crusader. I hadn't played it in a really long time. It was good.
Yeah. It, a part of me does miss the feel of like arcade driving games.
Oh, dude, when we're finally back to normal, we got to do a trip to Barcade. Come up. It's been a
Yeah.
long.
No, I would love to do that. I'd love to get out.
It's been so long. I miss it.
Yeah. I've
I mean,
been,
like even before this, I hadn't been there in a while.
nah.
Nobody's been anywhere in a while.
Yeah, nobody. Literally the last thing that I did was March 14th. We went to Top Golf.
Talk off. Yeah, I know.
Um,
So we should have come.
yeah, I mean, I
Fucking
get it. Especially like you guys are closer to the city. It was probably at that point.
but
Um,
and I because that was when like that the week that led up to that was when
mhm,
we both decided it was like time to stay home and go remote and like stay inside.
yeah.
And she had finished on Thursday and she worked from home Friday. And Friday
Mhm.
was my last day and I got home and I was like, yo, I'm never going outside again. And we were debating really heavy because like we really wanted to come. But
No,
yeah,
it's cool. I
so
mean, the reason that we ended up going and we decided to go and kind of like, say screw it.
yeah.
We brought hand sanitizer with us and we wiped everything down. The
Yeah.
golf clubs, the table, everything got wiped down. Um, and also, you're pretty far away from everybody else.
That's true.
You're in an open air environment. You're far away from everybody else. Um, and we were like, you know what?
Yeah. No, and
This might be the last time and it turned out that was literally the last normal thing that we did. And that Monday, everything shut down. Everything shut down.
and life got crazy.
Life got very weird.
Dude,
I
I, I waited like 45 minutes outside in line for a butcher today.
Wow. Hey, you know what?
Life is
What
crazy.
it blows my mind that like you go out and you see everybody wearing masks and like staying away from each other, and it's just what's weird to me is that like I feel like I'm walking in the uniform of a bank robber.
I know.
Like I don't have like a regular mask, so I use the like neck thing for that I
Yeah.
use for snowboarding. So I just kind of like pull it up over my face. I look like a criminal, especially like if I'm in the parking lot and I've put it on beforehand and I'm wearing like a baseball hat and my sunglasses.
Yeah.
It's like
I,
you feel like
I,
you're about to go in and rob the place.
yeah, I'm about to do an Ocean's 11 heist. Like
Right. Right.
it is. It's crazy, but I mean, man, I don't fucking know. It's yeah. It really is. It's crazy.
I mean,
Weird time.
what do you think that like where do you think that we're on the right path? Should we be staying with the total lockdown, or do you?
I mean, it's- I I am a slightly jaded opinion, like I said, from living in a city, as we were talking about before. But
Yeah.
also, like, I generally have low expectations for people, unfortunately. So, like, my feeling is that it would be nice if we could. And I do think that, it works. You stay away from people, you stay inside, like other countries have shown that it works. And
Hmm.
we just got to do it. If the worst fucking thing you have to do is stay inside, yeah, it can get really boring sometimes. But if the worst thing about your life is that you're really bored, eh, how bad are things really?
Yeah.
Uh, and it's been interesting because I feel like a lot of this has been all about perspective. Where my favorite things that I've seen when you spend time scrolling online, because
What else are you gonna do?
um you know you see the things that say like if you wake up in the morning during your lockdown and your creativity is through the roof and you want to write a book, that's awesome. If you wake up in the morning and you feel shitty and you feel kind of depressed because you're locked inside and you feel like everything sucks, that's okay too. Because like you're gonna have days that suck, and you're allowed to feel shitty about it. You also need to keep it in perspective because obviously there are people in significantly worse situations. Like, I think about like one step down from us. If we were in like a studio apartment rather than a two-bedroom,
Mhm.
apartment with a bunch of space, like that would suck. Of course, if you were in, like a broken down area or like a third world country for any of this, that's a completely different story.
Right.
You have to just kind of keep things in perspective, but understand that, like, the gamut of emotions is cool. If you want to feel depressed about this for a little while, that's okay if you can do it in a healthy manner.
Yeah. I think a lot of people lose sight of that being okay
Dude, I
because,
agree.
like, you see a lot of these memes like, oh, if you don't come out of quarantine with a new skill, a side hustle, or this or that, then, you didn't need time. Right. Yeah, essentially, basically saying you're fucking up if you don't do that. And it's like, you know, that's not necessarily the mentality that you should be having. Like, just preserving your mental health. I mean,
The important thing is not how you get through this, it's that you get through this.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, whatever gets you through this, save, harming people and
Well,
things,
sure.
whatever.
Whatever reasonably
Right.
gets you through
Whatever
this.
really gets you through this, like, that's okay because it's just about getting through it.
Hmm.
That that's the goal, and as long as you do that, we did it.
Yeah.
That's it. And people, like, that's kind of the point of the, positive versions of those messages, is just saying, like, give yourself some credit for just getting through it, because that's a trial in itself. Like, I was thinking the other day about how, people talk about like living through history and stuff like that. And I think that most generations get a thing that is like a generation making historical event that is going to be taught in history classes everywhere in the world.
Hmm.
You even think about like world wars and shit like that. There are parts of the world that you don't learn about that in school the same way we do here and the way they do in Europe and, any countries like that. But this this is gonna come up every
Everywhere.
it's not gonna be taught the same, obviously, because everyone has
Right.
very different response to it. But this topic will come up everywhere. That's crazy. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah. I remember the last day before we went on lockdown, the last day that I was in the office, um, I was leaving with one of my coworkers, and he goes, "This is going to be the thing that we talk about to our grandkids, that like we lived through that." And they're going to be like, "Did you really stay inside for that long and not see anybody?"
Grandpa,
And we're,
why did everyone buy so much toilet paper?
oh my God,
Some people never know.
so I had the misfortune of just needing toilet paper the third, like, so the, I guess it was the 12th. We needed toilet paper. It was like,
Yeah, yeah.
and that was, that day is when everything went nuts. I walked into the store, and I was able to buy a pack of toilet paper that lasted almost a month. It was just one pack though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only two of us here, so it's
Right.
not, but
I keep telling her, I don't know, she keeps ordering toilet paper.
well, like,
To be to be fair, we don't have that much. I'm kind of just kidding.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I don't have a problem with people having a surplus.
Space in an apartment.
What's that?
So we only have so much space in an apartment.
That too.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the surplus. It's that I was going into the store, and there were people there with so much toilet paper in their carts that I would have to have diarrhea for the next year every single day, multiple times a day, and have multiple people in the house having that same issue in order to get through that in a reasonable amount of time.
I had this thought so many times, and like the amount of times that Allie and I have gone back and forth has just been like, this has almost nothing to do with your stomach and your digestive and your excretory system. Like, what the fuck?
Now here's the other side to that.
Why?
There is um I read somewhere, I forget the article, and I'm sure someone will eventually fact check me on this, and hopefully I'm still accurate. Statistically, was predicted to be a 40% shortfall in consumer grade toilet paper. The reason being is not, and here's why. It's not that you're going to go to the bathroom more often. It's that you're going to go to the bathroom more often at home as opposed to in the office. So the problem is that converting the mills that make the commercial toilet paper to consumer grade doesn't make sense. But the shortfall that we saw was just straight panic buying.
Yeah, and I mean, I I understand that logic a little of like, okay, I'm gonna be home more. I'm gonna do everything at home, which I always endorse. Pooping when you're at work. If you're gonna poop, get paid for it. Sorry, I said that wrong. If you're gonna poop without home court advantage,
Get
then
paid for it.
yeah, that's right. Um, but I get that, but it was just like it just seemed like the weirdest thing to me of people buying like sanitizer and disinfectant. Like I understand all that, but everyone was going like, "There's a toilet paper shortage," and I'm like, "What?
Why?
That's the weirdest thing to not be able to get."
Right. Like I don't agree with it, but I understand the sanitizer, disinfectant, cleaning
Yeah,
wipes. Like it's still very hard to get that.
it's straight alcohol.
Yeah,
We use straight alcohol.
that's what we've done. Straight alcohol and aloe vera,
We
so that
have
it's not.
we found some shit that has like a wintergreen
Mhm,
gelatin mix with it, so it doesn't smell like straight up alcohol. But yeah,
yeah. Um,
it's the way
but
to go.
yeah, like I get that because that's a measurable like that. They're recommending you wash your hands more often, you disinfect more often. Um, but
But
toilet paper, and I mean, I'm talking like there was I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. There was a husband and wife there. She had a cart full of paper towels, and when I say a cart, I mean
suburb.
like like the undercarriage, the whole thing is full, and then there's another pack on top.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
had the same thing of toilet paper. I'm like, are what is going on here?
And they said we're building a fort.
Right. Now, I still like, my parents tell me every time they go to BJ's or Costco or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, do you need anything?" And we have a full pack of toilet paper, but I was like, you know what? And no, we actually did need paper towels. We were running out of that. And I was like, we need paper towels. If they've got extra toilet paper, pick up a pack
Right.
just in case.
Because now it's like, well, we might as well keep it in the house. And also, like for us, we have a bunch of shit that's like in the way. And if we had people coming over, we probably wouldn't want it there. But who the hell's coming
Right.
over?
Who's coming over right now? Um, the other thing too that like, let's say you're in a dire situation. You have no toilet paper. You're home.
Just get in the shower.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. Just get in the shower.
It's,
Now,
just get in the
I
shower.
would prefer to avoid that.
It's not a great, it's not like, it's definitely not the perfect solution, but it is a solution.
Right. It's a solution. And unless you don't pay your water bill, it's a solution that's always going to be there.
Dude, oh my God. We had a water main break here like last week.
Okay. Or unless your water main breaks.
So We had to boil our water.
Really?
Oh my god, for like for like a 2 days almost.
You had to boil all your water.
All our water
Oof.
was rough. We ended up going into we ended up going down to coming out of East Brunswick because Allie's parents had like cases of bottled water, and we
Hmm.
just bottled water for a few days because
Yeah,
yeah,
because you don't want to boil your water for
right,
two
dude. That
straight days. And,
that
and
was
that's just such a time consuming product. Like, oh, we're just going to put a 2 gallon pot of water on and boil it for 20 minutes.
also we did one boil like during the day, the first when it was during the day, and the water still came out with a bunch like shit in it. That
That
I
was going to be my next question. Like,
Nah, it
what did the
wasn't
water look like?
like that. It was still a little yellowish. I didn't really like that shit.
No,
So
no, no,
that's why
no.
we went with the bottled. But
Yeah, I'd
yo,
have done the same.
it was crazy. So that night we drove. We are going down to East Brunswick to do that, but we also went into the city first. We went. My buddy lives on. He just moved with his girlfriend to the east side on 39th Street and Second Ave.
Hmm.
He made it. We were going on a weeknight at rush hour, what should have been rush hour.
Right.
We made it there in about 15 minutes to 20 minutes. And then we were stopping by my buddy in Hoboken on the way out. We made it cross town, through Times Square, out the Lincoln Tunnel to Hoboken in 20 minutes at what should have been rush hour.
Oh my
It,
God.
it was
So,
wild.
so the traffic now is like, I
None.
went up to have like a driveway get together with some friends that live up in Lebanon.
Yeah.
It's about an hour from here. And when we drove up there, now we didn't go during rush hour. So it was as fast as it would have been, but the number of cars that were
Yes.
on the road
Lack of
was
traffic.
unreal. Like it reminds me of what it was like after Sandy.
Dude, yeah, even like coming down to East Brunswick when we've come down the last couple weekends, like going up and down the turnpike,
Hmm.
so unpopulated. It's quite frankly beautiful. I love
Yeah, I know that is a
it.
plus. Um, and speaking of driving, I got my Subaru back from the shop
Ah,
with the turbo kit.
ooh,
Yeah, so it makes a nice amount of power now, and driving that on an empty road is a lot of fun.
I bet.
Um, except I'm always the problem that I have with it is that I know the road's empty, and I know if there's a cop there, and I'm speeding,
It's you.
it's me.
You
It's
did.
me. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's no like, oh, what do you mean it was me? I was just keeping up with the flow of traffic. It's like, no, you're
No,
setting the flow of traffic
it
because
was
you're
just
alone.
you.
Yeah, it was just you. We haven't even seen another car down this road in, the past hour. So we know it was you.
But also, like, I feel like there's a certain amount you could be going over a speed limit where they would just be like, you know what, we don't want to get that close to people.
Well, I was actually going to say that too. Um, I've spoken to a few cops that said that unless you're doing something,
Egregious.
yeah, I was looking. That's actually the word that I was looking for. Unless it's egregious, they're not pulling you over.
Yeah.
So if you're doing 90 and a 50, you're getting stopped. If you're
Right.
doing
If you're doing 75 and
75 and a
5,
55, you're probably good unless the cop really wants to, you know, prove a
have something
point.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, but anyway, that drive in and out of the city was fucking interesting. It was light out and it was bare, but
Hmm.
also we drove up the east side. We were near Langone Medical Center, NYU,
Hmm.
and we were there at 7. We heard like everyone cheering for blocks and blocks and blocks. It was crazy. Um,
Really?
because that's what I don't know if you've heard about this. That's what they do in the state. They do that around here too. We have a medical center around here, and all through downtown Jersey City, you can hear at 7 o'clock, if you even if you don't open your window, your people cheering and banging pots and setting off car alarms, and because
For what?
that's when the shift changes at the hospital.
Oh, okay. All right, I can back that.
Every night,
All
everybody
right.
that for the hospital workers, and they've been doing it in a lot of cities, I think, and like most cities they do it here, and it was crazy to hear in Manhattan where you just hear like people yelling out the window and like for blocks. It's both very, very nice to hear and very, very sad to hear at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of like uh, not to compare it to 9/11, but like the way that people kind of came together with that.
oh yeah,
It's. I don't feel like there's as many bad people as you think there are, because when push comes to shove, most people uh, do the right thing. Most people,
you like to hope so. I
right?
hope so. And I mean, it seems through this, like we do see a lot of instances of really good things coming out of it, and excuse me. Um, I love watching like John Krasinski does his like good news channel from home that he's putting on YouTube, and
Yeah,
people doing shit like that. And I mean, it's awesome to see.
yeah. The
It's
other thing that you get out of that is you get these newscasters that think that you can only see them from the waist up.
I saw that was so funny.
there was um there was another
I was
newscaster
totally done
in
call so far without pants on, just because I could.
what's that?
I said I've totally done at least one call so far without pants on. I can. Nobody
I
knows
mean, yeah, no one will know. You just have to make sure you don't get up.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah. But
definitely.
did you
Oh,
see the one? There was a newscaster in Spain who was running a YouTube, like a live cast on YouTube, right?
yeah.
And in the background, a naked woman comes out of his bedroom and walks across like where my cat was earlier on that box. It was like that kind of thing, and it sparked this whole like thing because apparently he had been with this other woman, like dating this other woman, like publicly, and it sparked this whole thing, like, oh my god, he's cheating on her. As it turns out, they broke up, and like it wasn't the scandal that
That
everybody thought that they were seeing unfold. But it's
was
still hilarious to see in like your live casting, and you know,
dude. People have nothing better to do, so like they'll follow and repost some shit like that.
oh yeah, real quick.
God, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, it's been really funny, and actually one thing that I've really really like to see. One of Allie's friends, there's this family he used to tutor for,
Hmm.
and she, the husband of the family works at her company, and she's like stayed close with them. We got to
Yeah,
dinner with them sometimes. They're super cool people. And because the husband is one of the consultants and trainers at her communications consultancy where she works, and so he's been doing these Friday from home videos where he posts up like tips for he for working from home while you're in quarantine, and a bunch of things about like how to present yourself in front of a webcam, and like how to keep eye contact, and how to keep people interested, and how to make sure that things come across the right way, because it can be really hard
yeah.
with a system like this. It's funny, like I find myself when I'm on with people sometimes like raising my hands to gesture specifically because I am a
You
Jew.
know where the camera.
I'm a Jew from New York, and I don't know how to talk without hand gestures.
I'm much the same way. Not a Jew from New York, but
Close. Italians from New Jersey and Jews from New
yeah,
York, pretty much the same thing,
yeah, one and the same.
for real. And like I don't know how to talk without hand gestures. So I find myself sometimes when I'm doing these, like finding ways to raise my hands and make a gesture like that so that I can throw it in because
You missed that.
I don't know how to talk about it. It's so weird. Um, I still remember the first time we watched like John Oliver
Mhm.
with no audience, and he was just doing it from home, and how I immediately was just like, this is gonna be weird for comedians to have to do stuff with no reaction. They're still like pausing, like there's laughter, but they're not hearing anything. They're just hoping you laugh at home and
Yeah.
going on.
Um,
It's funny, and like we've gotten used to it now, I guess. But it's
yeah.
the first
But
time it was very funny.
it's still very interesting because like I don't know if you follow anything on Twitch, but there's been a lot of like DJ live streams,
Okay.
um, comedy stuff like that. Like people are doing that
Yeah.
because it's the only medium that you like. It's the internet's the only way to get it out there,
Right. Of course.
and um, it's interesting because you can only communicate with people on that via the chat on the other side, and it's all text.
Right.
So you don't hear anything from them. It's probably a very similar situation for,
Yeah.
you know, comedians that are used to like a live audience.
Well, yeah.
And
And
it's just,
even, I mean, even like a lot of I have so many musician friends around here, um, and like a lot of them are doing like live stream shows and
yeah,
doing stuff from home, and like you have nobody to react. Your reactions are all like people typing and just going like, "That sounded great."
yeah,
Phew, like it's interesting, But
yeah,
I mean, there's been good support for stuff like that. I feel like people have started doing that everywhere, and a lot of people have generally been pretty receptive because that's how we get entertainment now. Can you imagine doing this without the internet?
I mean,
No.
no, no.
Dude, oh my god.
I mean, literally what we're doing right now would be impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there'd be a lot of phone calls.
yeah.
We'd all have
And,
crazy phone bills. But
and you know, what's funny too is that like I had a Zoom call it was my sister's birthday on Friday, and we
yeah,
had a Zoom call with my parents, my grandfather, um, and my sister, and you could just see the amazement on my grandfather's face at like, oh my god, I can see them. They're in the computer and they can see me,
right.
and
Yeah.
it's all just out there.
Yeah, man. It's an absolutely wild thing. And I I was thinking this the other day where I was just like, if we didn't have the internet and this was a thing, this would have been the thing that made someone invent the internet.
Yeah,
Because they would have stuck at home and been like, we need to pass information fast, even from anywhere. And just like that would have been the thing that led to somebody inventing the internet. But
yeah.
luckily, we didn't have to deal with that, and it's already here. And so we can do things like this.
That brings up a good, like an interesting idea, because there's a lot of people that are. I would assume there's a lot of very creative people who are stuck doing nothing right now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 years there's some sort of boom in uh, new inventions and like new innovations that are
Definitely.
born out of people being stuck um, under lockdown like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Necessity. What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of innovation.
Yeah, something like
No.
that.
What's the mother of innovation? Right.
Um, I know exactly. I'm drawing a blank on the phrase, but I know exactly what you're talking
Necessity is
about.
the mother of innovation. I've been good about my phrases recently. The other day, Ali said to me, asked me about Murphy's Law, and I always
Mhm.
screw up Murphy's Law and Occam's Razor, but I had him right, and I was excited.
Wait, Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
And Occam's
And
Razor is the simplest answer, is usually the right one.
oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in so many words. Occam's razor
Right.
says it differently, but that's yeah. Necessity is the mother of all invention. Of invention. That's all right. Right on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. People will come up with some shit.
Yeah.
Those people that are on that positive end of I'm waking up and feeling creative and I'm gonna do something with it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like start a podcast.
for real. One of my
Who'd-
buddies, Billy, is an engineer and he has a 3D printer and he started doing all kinds of stuff with 3D printing. Now he's been like making masks and face
Yeah.
shields and stuff for people. But yeah,
There's
dude, so cool.
yeah. There's a speaking of 3D printers, there's a tech YouTuber. I don't know if you've ever heard of Linus Tech Tips. They had something like 38 or 40 3D printers that they had acquired for some video they were going to do. And then all this happened and they basically said, okay, screw it. We'll do the video another time. And they repurposed all the printers. They're printing something like 600 masks per day or like face shields per day.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
And that's another crazy invention, a 3D printer.
Yeah, I know, right? You just make
You could just
something.
make it
s- Who
and it
knows?
prints.
No, it's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to go see one.
I was thinking about buying one a while back because they're not as insanely priced as they once were.
I want one of those fucking pens that you can just like draw something in 3D. Those just look like fun.
Yeah, that looks like a lot of fun.
I'd fucking try that shit. That's so cool.
But when I was building my desk computer, which clearly I don't use it as a desk anymore because the computer is behind me.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, it just with both of us working up here and some of the things that I wanted to do, like mounting the monitors on the desk, like on a monitor swing arm, using this doesn't work with the weight with how thick the desk was because it needed to be like 8 inches thick to accommodate all the components.
That's fair.
So it just wasn't really suiting my needs anymore. So I switched to a regular desk and went with a transparent. I don't know if you can really.
Jesus. Oh shit. Yeah, that looks
It's
crazy.
mounted on the wall.
And that has. Oh,
Yeah, it's liquid cooled. You can do all sorts of fun designs with the.
that's
Check this out. The fans will actually sync together. Like it's not just coincidentally going on some random loop like that.
right.
As soon as the software boots up.
Well, yeah, I see it changing.
Yeah. Pong.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do with technology now.
I know, right?
So yeah, I've got that, and then that covers the giant radiator that dissipates all the heat. And it puts a lot of heat out into the room. I'm not gonna lie. It puts a lot of heat out into the room. When I'm like actually using it, it will actually warm the room significantly.
Sure. Yeah. That's the one drawback to something that big. But it looks cool as shit.
But it's relatively quiet. It's almost totally silent. Like I can hear coil whine over the fan.
That's good.
And it's not like terrible coil whine either.
Yeah.
So it's also sitting literally like 6 inches away from me. So, if you're going to hear it, you're going to hear it.
No, for sure. But I mean, I always hate machines that get really loud. I don't really want that shit.
No.
It's gonna be weird not having a laptop as my centerpiece anymore, and putting that little fucking Mac Mini just chilling.
It's going to look so much more clean though. I'm a big fan of like I went from the big setup to something that's a little bit more minimalist. Um, I'm kind of a fan of the it just being a little bit more minimal and clean.
I like it without the wires for sure. That's gonna be nice because all the stuff like right now, I keep I can unplug this and show you. I keep like wires next to me, and
Hmm.
they have Velcro on them, so I can just like stick them under my desk when I'm done with them, and then like get them back to plug them in.
Yeah.
So I have like my hub and my interface and my hard drives and shit. But like I can keep a bunch of that just connected when I get the new one. I'm probably gonna have to get one more hub. I bought where's the hub I got? This shit's pretty nice actually. This just came today. I got one of these guys. Um
The USB-C
yeah, and
hubs, those are good.
this is a solid one, it seems like. So I got one of them for now. I might want one more. Um but actually this thing's solid because it's got what is it? Three USBs, an HDMI, and then like I think there's actually a USB-C in there, and then some SD card readers.
Yeah. No, that's solid.
Yeah. So so it's coming next week. I'm so excited. Uh, I just
Yeah.
it's especially like I found a really good template for mixing that I like, but it's slightly CPU intensive because I'm insane sometimes and I do like a little bit of extra routing just kind of for fun and also because I like the control it gives me because I'm a control freak. Um, which is what being an audio engineer is. That's what someone once told me. You get to be a professional control freak. So it's a
Hmm.
good job.
How do you feel about like something like Voicemeeter being used to change things around?
Is I don't know voice.
It's basically like a virtual interface.
Is that um like it generates speaking? Is that what this is?
What do you
Wait,
mean by generate
oh,
speaking?
no, wait, what is this? This is just audio software.
Yeah.
Voice meter. What does it do? It just like
So, like for example, if I wanted to
oh, it's an
split the
audio.
audio signal.
Yeah. I mean, dude, shit like that is great. It's super useful as long as it doesn't like color the sound crazy. You know,
Hmm.
a lot of the stuff that's made like that, like some of it will change the way shit sounds a lot. But as long as it doesn't, then yeah, man, that's cool stuff. I like I like the ability to do that. It's actually one of the things that I like about Windows over Mac, hilariously, is that sound, like the built-in sound to the computer
Yeah.
controls for it. You have a volume mix in Windows, which I actually really like and I find very useful. Although you can get there on Mac, it's just like a little bit more of a pain.
So I keep in mind I've never owned a Mac.
Yeah, that's true. Mac has a way of they have the audio MIDI setup, which is like a solid way of doing that, and it does give you good control, and it does give you much better ability to do aggregate devices and stuff like that, where like I can add multiple interfaces together.
Hmm.
So that's a plus. But so yeah, actually Mac is better for that. Never mind. I retract. I
It's
just like the
better, but you've got to know what you're doing.
I just like the volume mixer in Windows because it's simple and easy to fack with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's with any system. Like I remember when I was in school, I saw this thing. I'm gonna send you this link because you should see this. So I saw this thing. This was new at the time from the Slate Audio Company,
Okay.
and this thing here, I sent it to you in the chat. That thing is called the Raven, and it works with your DAW software, and it's a big touch screen, and you can do all kinds of like, moving multiple faders at once, and it's got a whole
Oh,
bottom for like macros and shit like that. Um, the
That's
Ravens.
great. That looks crazy.
Here's the thing, it's a giant mouse pretty much because it doesn't process any audio. It's just a touchscreen interface for operating your software. So it's cool, but
But it's
it's
a giant mouse.
a giant mouse. And for some stuff, it's really cool. But like for some stuff, it's just like, why? Although actually, they do have one now with a built-in like system that will pass audio, which is nice. I think with a monitoring system, which is cool.
Mhm.
But either way, we saw that thing when I was in audio school, and Steven Slate, who's the owner of the company, came to demo it and he showed it off, and we saw it, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, right? And he brought in the one he uses for demos, and it was all calibrated, and he had crazy macros set. And we were doing
Mhm.
cool shit. They gave the school a couple to use, and I went up to the room that had them in a production suite. I went up to the room and I was like, all right, man, I want to fucking use this Raven. It's gonna be so cool. And I sat down and I was like, I need to calibrate this entire thing and set macros for me.
Oh,
There's nothing that you can do that doesn't take at least a little bit of practice to get yourself fluid in.
yeah.
It can be the coolest system in the world, but like without calibration and some learning hours, it's never going to make you fast. It can't. There's nothing
Yeah.
do it instantly. And that was like initially when we saw it, we were just like, oh my god, I could fly doing a mix with this. I would have everything. It would be right there.
Once it's set up.
Right. Once you take like, 6 hours and set it up and learn it and figure out where everything is, and then realistically, you'd have to just work on it for a while because you're still not going to be as fast as you would be on,
Right.
Word or something like that. It's it's really the case of pretty much anything. Like there's always that learning curve.
Yeah. No, for
Right?
sure.
That shit just doesn't change. There's nothing to do about that.
No, it's definitely cool. It looks cool. It looks
It's also,
badass.
and it's fun to use, man. They are really cool, and the idea was great, and it's a little bit of the future. Oh my god, when I was at AES here though, I saw the thing, man. Fucking VR mixing
Oh,
on a VR headset. And you were watching, in this case, it was like a demo they had set up. It was pretty cool. They had like a video of the band playing all around you.
yeah.
Just turning, you could like grab instruments and turn them up and move them over and like
That's really cool. So check this out.
fun.
I'm a huge fan of VR.
I know.
Huge fan of VR. Let me see if I can show you with the background that I had. So check this out.
Hey,
I don't know.
that's so dope. Damn, that's high speed.
Yeah, that's one of the games that is cool. I mean, it's rightfully called it's Beat Saber.
Yeah, it's interesting how like VR. I remember this from when we were playing like a while back at your place,
Yeah,
and how it's like still in its simple gaming stages because it's not like you're running around doing all kinds of crazy shit, but it's like it's still so much fun.
well, it's just
I
what I
still
think.
I still remember doing that Batman demo and just fucking
Yeah,
off batarangs with both.
right.
That
It,
sounds weird.
right.
Cranking off batarangs. I stand by it because you just like the targets pop up and you can just throw them.
Yep.
That was
And
so much fun.
it's still, even though VR is very much in its infancy still, um, it's amazing how, like, if you look back, even just 5 years,
Yeah,
there was nothing.
I
Like
know.
the most that you got was like the Samsung Gear VR. The Oculus Rift was this like thing that um nobody knew when it was going to come out, and it was like it was like almost unattainable because you had to have a super high end PC
Right.
and you had to have the headset. Um, And when it originally released, it didn't even release with controllers. It released with one sensor. So it was still very limited.
Right.
And then just adding another sensor, adding the 2 touch controllers, which I've used when I was at PAX in February. I got the opportunity to use the Valve Index, which is supposed to be the highest end tethered VR headset that you can get right now. It's $1,000 to buy it from scratch. Plus, you've got to have a computer that can run it.
Okay.
And the controllers are supposed to be like the best that you can get because they strap to your hands, and they track all 5 fingers, so
Yeah.
you could give the finger in VR, and I like them, but I still think, and this is probably just personal bias, but I still think that if I could find a way to strap the Gen 1 touch controllers with the Oculus Rift to my hands, those would be the ones that I would never need another controller. And I've used the Gen 2 touch controllers, and I don't like them. They're virtually the same controller, same button layout, same feel, or same shape, with one big difference. The ring that gets tracked. So with the Gen 1 Oculus, the CV1 Oculus Rift, you used external sensors. And they're basically like low grade black and white UV webcams, or not UV, infrared webcams.
Yeah.
And the way that it would track where you were, in addition to the accelerometer and gyroscope in the headset and the controllers and everything, was that there's a dot matrix on the headset and the controllers.
Okay.
And the ring, actually, hold on one second. Okay. Gen 1 touch controller, right? Now, I don't know if you're going to be able now, because the light is too.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to see the actual. Let me hold on.
Do you want to see the funniest? Look at this picture of my dog. She fell asleep with her tongue out.
That's funny.
I don't know.
So it's too bright in here to actually like show it. But if you take a regular webcam, you can actually see the infrared dot matrix. But like all along this ring are little like infrared dots that the sensors use to track it.
Right.
The way that it sits in your hand is like perfect. It's weighted so that it stays in your hand like this, right?
Those were nice.
Right.
Didn't take me long to figure out how to use that properly.
Yep. The only improvement that I think that they could make on this really would be to add, right now it tracks your thumb with the top up here, all of these surfaces.
Right.
It tracks your thumb with this area, right? It tracks the trigger because this is all a capacitive touch surface. And it tracks your middle finger with the grip button right here, right?
Yeah.
The only improvement that I think that they could have made to this controller would be to have added more capacitive surface here and a way to strap it to your hand so that you could full on let go, right?
Yeah, and then that, all right.
Right. So the Gen 2 did something that this is basically the same, the whole like layout here, but this ring is flipped so that this, rather than going down, it comes up.
Oh, that's weird.
So the reason they did that is because the Rift S, which is the newer version of the Rift, and the Quest use what's called inside-out tracking. So there's no more sensors. There's a multitude of cameras positioned all around the headset itself.
Okay.
And they are what's picking up the controller in space, right? And in order to see the pattern, If you have it like this, the pattern's on the bottom, it's occluded, the cameras can't see it. So they had to flip the ring to the top. So now this is what the camera sees.
Right.
The problem with that, aesthetically, I don't care. Like it doesn't matter. But when you hold the controller in your hand, if you loosen your grip, it wants to flip over.
Ah.
That's the one thing that I don't like about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, even though VR is still in its infancy, being able to play a game like Beat Saber, which right now I think is a game like the first. I was so against trying it because I'm like, it's a rhythm game. I don't really like dancing. Screw that. I'm not going to do that. I was wrong. I think it's the first game that everybody should try.
So
I really do, because it uses the fact that you don't have to move around your space, which is big. It uses the space well.
yeah, I remember that being something I had to that being something I kind of had to get a handle on was when I was playing. It was that game with where like you were stationary shooting. There was like robots and shit.
Space Pirate Trainer.
Yeah, and you have the shield,
Mm-hmm.
which was so much fun with the shield. You could do like the crazy action movie thing.
Yeah.
But like playing that one and then hitting the boundaries of my tracking area a couple of times and just going like, oh right, my feet can be planted. I just need to look around.
Right.
You know, it's like it's a weird thing to get concept of when you feel like you should be moving around,
Right.
but you don't actually want to be moving around that much.
Yeah. It's just it does a good job of like immersing you in the world that you're in, and you can't hear anything outside of that. So like I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but like the way that it brings you into that,
Yeah.
and how sound moves around you is unreal. I think that that's really what makes it, is the fact that you can turn, you can lift your head, you can tell exactly where a sound is coming from.
It's so true, and that also, like, just in general, I was really impressed the first time I played Oculus at your place, and mostly because with every other headset that I had ever tried, I was in a point I hit a few minutes in where like everything sort of just you'd get dizzy and like
Mm-hmm.
I'd take it off and I'd have a headache and be
You
like,
get
dude,
VR sickness.
that was fun, but like, oh Jesus. But like with that one, I played that shit for like 45 minutes
Yeah,
and I took it off and I was like, that's cool.
you good.
Throwing those batarangs for like 20. Um, but I mean, you know, I was good, and the stabilization of it, and just everything about it moving around, it was really really good, and I was
Yeah,
really impressed by that because ordinarily like I'm not really a motion sick type of person, but
right.
like you know I feel like old school technology of those headsets, especially like the fake ass ones that you kind of
Well, yeah, like
like put your phone up in front of and
yeah. I mean, the problem with those is that like
with your head.
it's going. We were talking about refresh rate on screens earlier, right?
Yeah.
Phones up until relatively recently were always 60 hertz displays, right? Now there's a bunch of phones on the market that have 90 hertz or 120 or whatever. I don't think there's any that have 120. But I know for sure that there's a ton that have 90 hertz displays.
Yeah.
In most situations, refresh rate, as long as it's enough to get by, like if you're just watching TV, you don't need 60 hertz or 60 frames per second. You don't need 120 frames per second, or like my monitor is
Like
240.
playing Skyrim and Warcraft and shit. That's what my friends have.
Right. They've got high refresh rate monitors, right? Yeah. And even there's a point of diminishing returns. Pretty like the jump from 60 up to 144 is drastic, like really drastic. But the jump from 144 up to 240, Not so drastic. It feels a lot more incremental. And I don't notice it now unless the game, like, for whatever reason, starts dropping frames or like lowers down to 60. I see the 240 and I'm like, okay, that looks very smooth. If I wasn't playing on a 240 hertz screen, 144 would look just as smooth, I feel like. But in VR, the higher the refresh rate you can get, and the only headset right now that has like a higher than 90 refresh rate is the Index. The more frames that you can generate, the quicker you turn your head, the less clipping you'll see. You know, like if you go to a high refresh rate monitor, you could probably look up a video on YouTube for this. If you go to a high refresh rate monitor and you just drag the mouse across the screen, the difference between 60 and 120, 144, 240, drastic.
Yeah.
Even more drastic in VR because it's the same thing. You're turning your head. In real life, you're seeing a continuous image.
Right. It's that same kind. It's like analog seeing versus digital seeing.
Yeah, exact kind of.
No
So the
matter
more
how-
frames that,
Right.
yeah, the more frames it can push out, that's a situation where the motion is smoothed and you don't get as sick because that like the 60 hertz displays that make people sick, 90 hertz too sometimes, but because the motion isn't as smooth is why you start to get a headache, because you're tricking your brain into seeing it, and it knows there's something wrong. Like it knows that it's not real.
Yeah.
And the closer that you can get to reality, the easier it is to actually see.
Right. It's like the uncanny valley of sight.
Yeah.
Sort of. Not really.
Well, Uncanny Valley with there are a lot of games out now that approach that,
Yeah.
and it's weird.
I mean,
Like,
that's the valley, man. Gets
like
weird down there.
it's you know what I've noticed? It gets really weird when it's someone talking. For some reason, mouth movements just still look like super unnatural the more natural they look.
I know. It's so off-putting, and like it's funny because playing Gears of War, like I love their balance in Gears of War, where like they are definitely people, but also they are definitely a video game. Like those
Mhm.
that's not a fucking person. And it's so good. And when you see their mouths move when they talk, like I'm okay with that. It looks
Mhm.
fine. I don't need to see this on a video game. It's a little creepy, man.
You
I
know
don't
what
know.
the other thing too is? That
That
next gen.
slope.
What's that?
The valley's got a hard slope.
Yeah. Um, I didn't realize it was this stark either. That it's not even the graphics that make it look so unnatural. It's the lighting.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, look up a game. Um, the best example of it is a game called Control.
Okay.
Uh, and a few years ago, NVIDIA came out with their ray tracing cards. So it does real time ray tracing in game, right?
Okay.
And everybody was super disappointed because it's like, well, it's not that much faster than the last card, and if you turn ray tracing on, it decimates the performance
Right.
comparatively.
Right.
But if you're looking for visuals, when you're walking around that game and you see like the old way that they would render shadows and things like that would be screen space. So if the lighting source is on screen and things like that, it would show shadows and stuff like that and reflections, but they weren't quite perfect. And if you occluded the light source on screen, all of a sudden the shadows would disappear. With ray tracing, it renders the entire environment's lighting. Everything looks real.
Yeah,
Everything looks so much more real, and it's not a huge jump in graphics either.
that's so cool. Um, yeah, that's fucking awesome, man. I'm always interested by that, and of course, this goes back to my love of Bob Ross. Classic Bob Ross. But like, it's it's always one of the things that was so amazing about him to me is that he takes so much consideration as to like, okay, where's my light source in this, and what kind of angles is the light supposed to be coming from? Because it's when he does that, and he does that thing where like he's made a blob that's pretty much a tree, and then he highlights it from just the right angle with the leaves, and all of a sudden, like, dude, that's a fucking tree.
Yeah.
And
You're like,
you
where's he going with this? I think
obvious
he's about to ruin the painting. Wait a minute.
because there's only happy little accidents.
Yep. Happy little accidents.
But
I think we'll
of Bob Ross so much.
I think we'll end the
You know his,
episode on that.
his story, right? You know how Bob Ross got to be Bob Ross.
Oh yeah. He was a drill sergeant.
He was a master sergeant.
Yeah, okay, master sergeant.
And
And he decided that if he ever left the army, he was never going to yell again.
yeah, he used to be the guy that like screamed his head off
Yeah.
and like drilled all the cadets, and like when he left he vowed never to yell again, and then he became
He
Bob
became
Ross.
Bob Ross.
Beat the devil out of him.
Beat the devil out of it.
So good.